Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl, the Brooke Ashley, and today we are here to discuss The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, Season 2, Episode 1. Y'all, we are back with a brand new season, and before we jump into it, let me say that SLC started out with a bang. I got my entire life with this 1 hour and 15-minute premiere, especially those first 2 minutes. I said, okay.
I love it. I love it.
So between Beverly Hills and now SLC, we are all about to be well fed. Y'all know how we do on this channel. We love to celebrate. We love our champagne. So because this is the premiere episode, I will be opening up a fresh bottle of Veuve Clicquot. Cheers. So good. Before we get started, let me just say a few things quickly. Heather, I see that you're trying to be the star of the show this season. I see how you're now in the middle of all the ladies, and your tagline was A1. I was raised Mormon, and now I raise champagne. I said, you deserve a raise for that one. Also, I want to welcome Jennie to the fold. I think that she's a great addition so far to the cast, and it's evident that when they casted Jennie, they were looking for a replacement for Shah. But with all that being said, let's just jump right on into it because we don't have a minute to spare. We start off this premiere with the ladies getting inside of a party bus, and they are in the Beauty Lab parking lot. We all know that Heather owns Beauty Lab. She was promoting it like 24/7 last season. So they're all getting on the bus, and we know that they were on their way on their cast trip to Colorado. So as they're getting on, Miss Jen Shah receives a call, and she goes to ask Whitney to take her mic off. And you can tell that there's something not quite right. And I was just like, I know we're not about to see what I think we're gonna see. I think it was 12 minutes later, Jen is already on her way home, and we see the helicopter swarming the parking lot, and the feds come looking for Jen Shah. I said, now you know, this is absolute madness. We see the other ladies in shock, like, what's going on? Whitney's getting a Google alert that says how Jen Shah has been indicted on fraud charges and scamming. And they're all like, I have chills. This is unreal. And of course, we hear Lisa asking, how did they know that we were at Beauty Lab? How did they know? That is the one thing that I've been so excited for about SLC coming back. I miss doing my Lisa Barlow impressions, all right? Lisa, I have a guess as to how the feds knew where Jen was. I think that Meredith let the feds know. We all know that Jen and Meredith are on the outs right now, and I would not be surprised if she said, let me just make a call real quick, because we see in this first 2 minutes that Meredith still hasn't arrived on the party bus yet. Just my guess. We're gonna see how this all plays out. The season has just begun. Let me know what you guys think. My money's on Meredith. And the clip of Jen Shah walking out the courthouse, I am going to be glued to my TV when that episode airs. Do you hear me? Like, I don't think you guys understand how bomb this season is about to be. Okay, like, it's about to really give us everything that we need. So please get ready. Now we officially start the episode off with Jen Shah. She's at home. Well, I should say she's in her new chalet, and she's with her second assistant. Now, we remember last season, Jen had about 8, 9, 10, 50, 11 assistants, and we all have no idea why she has so many assistants, because what does she do? But I digress. They're in the kitchen chopping up some food, and then Lisa comes over. Lisa's really excited to see her. We find out that Lisa and Jen have really grown a lot closer. Lisa's complimenting Jen's new home. Jen, your house is so nice. I love this. I want to visit. Jen finally fesses up to us in the confessional that her first home that we saw her in last season was a rental. But Jen, we already knew that, honey. because everybody was in my DMs telling me how the house was on Zillow and the New York Post reported on it. So we knew. We were just waiting for you to confess and admit that you were renting. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it begins to be a problem when you're trying to sit up here and posture like you got it like that and you really don't. That's our issue. Lisa wants a tour of the new chalet and Jen starts showing her her closet. Now, Jen's new closet is where the exercise room was supposed to be, so it's huge. When I tell you, Jen's closet looked like I was at Neiman Marcus. Huge, it was stunning. I mean, everything was in its proper place. I was like, this is a dream. I am all for a good flex. If you got it, stunt, but only if you got it legally. I was cracking up when Jen said, the movers told me that they had never seen so many bags, shoes, and clothes before. I said, girl, those same movers will be right back in this chalet to move these same clothes, bags, and shoes out to give to the victims. But I digress. They finished the mini house tour and now Lisa and Jen sit down to talk. Jen says that the other ladies are jealous of her because of her relationship with Lisa and the fact that they don't have good relationships with Lisa. So now Jen starts telling Lisa all about what she's been going through for the past 6 months. She says that quarantine has been really hard for her, and not only that, she thought her world was coming to an end because Sharif wanted a divorce. We find out that Sharif not only contacted a divorce attorney, but the divorce attorney hit her up and said, hey, you know your husband wants to leave you, right? And she was devastated. I suspect that Sharif has wanted to leave for quite some time. Last season, I remember you had revealed that you guys had gotten into a big fight and he not only left the house for 4 days, but you couldn't reach him for those 4 days. He didn't pick up his phone. You couldn't get a text, an email, a voicemail. I just really think through his actions that he's been checked out of this marriage for some time. And I feel like you are trying to hold him by his ankles to stay with you, and he doesn't want to be there. And when Jen was joking about how they're in couples therapy now, and she said, and nobody's leaving nobody, like we're stuck together, and honestly, who would I get? Like who would put up with me if I were to be single again? I honestly feel like it will be the nail in the coffin for their marriage if Jen is sentenced to jail time. I don't see Sharif staying by her side if she does go to prison. And I think it's really funny how toned down Jen is in this premiere. She's a lot different from the Jen that we saw in last year's premiere. I'm not mad at it. I think that Jen received a lot of backlash for how she acted in the last season, and she was told, stop doing the most, take it down a few notches, and just be yourself. Now Lisa brings up where Jen and Meredith stand because we all remember how Jen and Meredith fell out in last season. Lisa says she doesn't want to get in the middle, and she's like, I'm not trying to get in the middle. I'm just here to just broker peace between the two of you guys. I just want you all to be friends, all right? Then she goes on to say how she doesn't want her friendship with Meredith to be affected because she's now friends with Jen. Now, if you've been following me for any length of time, then you know how I feel about situations like this. I don't believe in playing neutral in certain situations. I believe that when you have a good friend, stand by your friend's side. And if somebody does your friend wrong, you need to be like, well, I don't like you. I don't talk to you either because you can't do my friend wrong and then think that you're going to talk to me. That's just how I feel. In this situation, Lisa's playing a very dangerous game. Her and Meredith have been friends for 10 plus years. Their kids are really close. Their husbands are close. I don't understand why she's risking that to be friends with Jen. And I remember in last season, Lisa and Jen weren't good friends like that. So now this newfound, I just want to be Jen's friend and be close, is giving, she's trying to align herself with who she thinks is going to take her to season 3. I think that you're being a really shady friend to now want to be close to Jen, knowing that Jen and Meredith have some severe issues. Just my 2 cents. I know a few of y'all might disagree with me down in the comments, but I said what I said, and that's just how I feel about certain things. I just wouldn't be surprised if some money exchanged hands at some point, because this newfound loyalty to Jen, I'm just not understanding it. Again, y'all, put it down in the comments. Let me know what you think about this new Lisa-Jen alliance. But something in the milk ain't clean. So now we close out the scene with Jen saying to Lisa that she would go to jail for Lisa, and she hasn't been to jail yet. I said the foreshadowing on this show. Now we move on to the next scene with Meredith. She's in her new home too. Now Meredith says, I know you have your jewelry in Neiman Marcus and you have millions, but you weren't clear about if you bought this home or if you're renting. I think the home we saw you in last season was a rental as well. I'm gonna need some clarity when it comes to these chalets, honey, because y'all aren't clear. But anyway, it's a gorgeous new house. And can we discuss that view? I never thought in a million years that I would ever have a desire to vacation in Utah. Watching this premiere and seeing those views of the mountains, I said, all right, I'm gonna make Utah a vacation spot sometime end of this year or 2022, but it looks absolutely gorgeous. I was looking at the Waldorf Astoria too there. You know, only the best for the doll, honey. Heather arrives, they sit down to talk and have a cute glass of champagne, and Heather's asking Meredith about her marriage and how everything is going. Meredith says that they're back on track. We remember how Seth and Meredith had a lot of marital issues. They had filed for separation and they were on the brink of divorce. But they're back together and everything is smooth sailing. So we think, because I was just very surprised at how quickly things turned around for them. I kind of got the impression that Meredith was playing up her marital issues for a storyline. Heather discusses her oldest daughter getting ready for college, and I think her oldest daughter wants to go to college in California. She then goes on to say how she wants her daughter to have all the experiences and actually be a good time girl. I like Heather a lot. I like how down to earth she is, and I really like her parenting style. I love how open-minded she is. I love how she does not want her daughters to be put in this box. She doesn't want them to be, you know, super straight-laced and have no experiences. She's like, I want y'all to live because I didn't get to. So go and do it up big. So I was here for all of it. I see the similarities with Heather and her daughters and Giselle Bryant from Potomac with her daughters. They both have 3 girls. They're both single moms. And they both have great relationships with their kids. It's really nice to see. Now we move on to Whitney. She's at home with her husband and her stepsons come over. She has 3 stepsons, and I think it was one of their birthdays. I think one of them was turning 26. Whitney says in her confessional that while she likes her stepsons, the dynamic can get a little bit weird because they're closer in age to her than they are with their father. Remember that Whitney is like 34, 35, and her husband is 52, and her stepsons are in their late 20s. So yeah, she's definitely a peer to her stepsons than a mother figure. They start taking shots. Her stepsons are giving her feedback for her new name because she wanted to change the name of her skincare brand. So while they're taking shots and giving her feedback, Whitney says in her confessional that growing up Mormon, she was taught as a girl that the man is a provider and the woman stays home and takes care of the family. She says she's ready to make her own money now because she's tired of giving blowjobs for the money. I said, well, girl, it could be worse. Whitney also says that she wants to be a role model to her stepsons and she wants to show them how you can work hard and play hard. I said, girl, not a role model. And Whitney, you're acting like they didn't grow up with a rich dad. Like, I was just cracking up at Whitney's logic. She was talking like there's some young kids who need to be taught and they are grown men. So they are throwing back shots. I think they were drinking tequila. They all go outside in the hot tub, and they had all this foam in the hot tub, so it's like a foam party. So they're all lit. Whitney goes back in the house to get the cake, and Whitney, you're cool and all, but girl, you were dead wrong for dropping that cake and then putting it back on the platter. And the fact that you would have served the cake had it not fallen a third time. Because I know when I drop a piece of food, it's going directly in the garbage. Miss me with all that 5-second rule, 10-second rule. No. Whitney, please don't ever let us see you do that again. You were out of order for that. We move on to Mary, and Mary Cosby is still crazier than a soup sandwich. As nutty as Mary is, she's hilarious. And I was dying from start to finish with this scene. Like, I could not stop laughing. We learned that Robert Sr. has not been in the house with them. He's still stuck in Florida at one of their other houses because he's too afraid to fly because of COVID. And then we find out that her son, Robert Jr., doesn't really talk to her. So Mary has just been talking to herself and the mannequins in her closet during the whole quarantine. So because she's been talking to herself for the past 6 months, she decided that she wanted to start a podcast. So we see Mary pulling up to the church. She's greeted by 2 of her friends and members of the church, and they sit down to start their podcast episode. They start off the podcast with a prayer. And I think it's her friend Sean who does the prayer. Baby, he went into full preacher mode. He starts it off by saying, Father God, in the name of Jesus, we thank you for letting us come together, Lord. And he's doing all that. I said, oh my gosh. So he's going on and on and on with this long prayer. Mary has to interrupt him like, okay, Sean, that's enough. Let me show you how to do it. So now Mary starts off the prayer and she pretty much does the same thing herself. So Mary's prayer finally comes to an end and they start off the podcast episode. Mary goes on to ask Sean and Lenny why they feel like kids today aren't following God. I think it's Lenny who says that it's because of the internet. Sean says too much access, and then Mary says that it's money. Now I said, Mary, you're one to talk about money because the streets say, i.e. your uncle who I interviewed last year told me that you love some money, hence why you married your step-grandfather, but I digress. Now the conversation turns to if any of them have ever done drugs before. I think it's Lenny who says that yes, he did when he was younger, and then Mary admits that she too smoked a lot of weed when she was younger. If you don't know, last year I interviewed Mary's uncle, and he gave me all the tea. The video is up, you can check it out. But he told me that Mary did engage, and not only that, but she allegedly dated quite a few big-time drug dealers in Utah. Now Mary says to Lenny and Sean that growing up, she didn't have a horrible upbringing, but she just never fit in and she was never liked. She also goes further to say that she doesn't trust human beings and how when she came to God, she's never felt a love from human beings the same way that she's felt love from God. I really do feel sorry for Mary, and I see why she clings so much to material items. And don't get me wrong, designer goods, luxury items, that's all nice to have, but it can't replace love and friendship. It just can't. And side note, I was screaming when production flashed to the painting of Mary's grandma holding hands with Jesus at the pearly gates. I lost it. Again, Mary is crazier than a soup sandwich, but I will be here tuned in for every single part of it, all right? We now move on to our newest housewife, Jennie. Jennie seems like a firecracker. I'm excited to get to know more of her throughout the season. And we find out some pretty cool things about her. She is good friends with Lisa Barlow because they met because their sons go to the same private school. And they were also pregnant at the same time. So now we meet Jennie's family. Her husband, Dewey, is a chiropractor, and they have 3 kids. Let me tell you something. Jennie's daughter was made for the cameras. When Lisa Barlow and them came over, and she said, I get straight A's over here. That's why we're Asian, not Bijan. I said, okay, sis, come through with the jokes. I was here for Jennie's daughter. We find out that when Jennie was a child, her and her parents fled Vietnam to the US in a fishing boat. And while they were in the fishing boat, it was actually captured and they had to live in a Thai refugee camp for 3 years. She goes on to reveal how a Christian church sponsored them to come to the US, and that's how they got here. We also find out that although Jennie is 43 on paper, she's actually 45. Her dad changed her age when they got to the US because he wanted her to go to kindergarten. So she was actually 7, but he changed her age to 5. I said, that's really cool because now nobody ever has to know her real age. That's really slick, actually. Jennie makes a joke about how when she first met Dewey, she thought he had a nice body. He was sexy from the neck down, but she said from the neck up, he was just okay. I said, I already feel like I'm going to like Jennie. I'm going to give her a few episodes because y'all know that these housewives will make a fool out of you if you jump out the gate episode 1 saying how much you like somebody, all right? I have been burned way too many times. So Jennie, while I think you're cool, I'm going to give you till episode 5 till I make my final decision about you. But so far, so good. Now we see a short scene with Jen, Shah, and Sharif. They're at their house and they have all of Jen's family over. We meet Jen's aunt who had both of her legs amputated. And you guys remember from last season, the whole debacle with the whole hospital smell and how Jen smelled like hospital because she had visited her aunt who had her legs amputated. So that was the aunt that we finally meet. And Jen says in her confessional that her and Sharif's relationship problems really impacted the rest of the family. Jen goes on to discuss how since her father and grandfather have passed, Sharif is now the backbone of the family. And like I said earlier in this recap, I just get the impression that Jen is doing everything in her power to get Sharif to stay with her. That means giving him the title of the patriarch of the family, him being the backbone of the family. She will just say and do anything for him not to walk out that door. I just get the impression that Sharif is no longer interested or invested in their marriage. And looking at his body language in this scene, he seemed like he didn't want to be there. The vibe was very much giving, this is the last family dinner, but I'm only filming this scene with you to be nice. So now we move on to the next scene with Mary, Heather, Meredith, and Whitney. And the food from this restaurant looked amazing, especially those truffle fries. And you know Miss Heather doesn't play when it comes to food. She was like, oh no, I'm ordering for this whole entire table because messing around with these ladies, you'll be eating a side salad, and that's not what I came here for. So the ladies are all talking, and Meredith mentions that her father has just passed away from dementia. She's really choked up, and she goes on to say how he always supported her, and she's just really upset. So they're comforting her. Mary and Heather also let her know that they know exactly what she's going through because they've lost their fathers recently as well. And during this scene, I got teary-eyed because I too just lost my father in May. And it was a complete shock. A lot of you guys know because you guys have been following me for quite some time. But if you're a new subscriber, I lost my father in May. He was so healthy, looked great. I mean, worked out, didn't drink, didn't smoke, just the epitome of good health, and he was young. He had just turned 61. But he had gotten cancer out of nowhere in October, and by May, he was gone. So dealing with all of that, it's still a shock. Like, I still can't believe it most days. So when I saw Meredith talking about how she just lost her father, I just got really choked up. Like every time I see someone talking about how they've lost a parent, I immediately get really teary-eyed because it's a pain like no other. Not trying to bring the mood down, so we can just move on to the other part of this scene. So they're all comforting Meredith, and the food comes out. The food looked absolutely amazing, by the way. Like I said, the truffle fries, I think they had like Reubens, and I think Meredith and Mary were sharing a meal, but the food looked phenomenal. Mary says, before we eat, let's bless the food. And I was cracking up because Mary in her prayer completely forgot about the food. She just says, "Dear Lord, please bless Meredith and her family, and thank you for friendship. Amen." And I said, Mary, that's a great prayer, beautiful prayer, but you forgot about the food. Now the topic turns to Lisa, and Heather makes mention of how she hasn't spoken to Lisa or Jen. Heather goes on to say how she and Lisa are still at odds and how she wants to apologize to Lisa. And then she says she thought that her and Jen were cool, but now Jen is on social media calling her a racist again. And Jen has been calling Heather a racist since before this show even aired. If you've been following the cast before season 1 even premiered, then you would know that there was a lot of drama between Jen and all of her castmates. Whitney says, "Why do you want to be friends with somebody who calls you a racist?" Mary even says in her confessional that she's confused as to why Heather wants to be friends with somebody who treats her like crap. Mary says, "Heather, she called me a racist first, and when people show you who they are, believe them." Now Meredith interjects and lets the ladies know what's going on between her and Jen. She says that Jen has been reposting and liking a lot of homophobic comments regarding her son Brooks. Meredith says in her confessional that Brooks has never spoken about his sexuality to anybody, not even her, and Jen needs to leave him alone. I don't have kids, but I would be pissed if a grown adult, almost 50 years old, was sitting there bashing my child about their sexuality. That is absolutely unacceptable, and Jen knows better. Now the topic of Lisa and Jen being friends comes up, and Whitney says, "I just don't understand how Lisa can be friends with Jen. How would Lisa feel if Jen went after her kids, Henry and Jack?" Meredith agrees she doesn't understand this newfound friendship either, but she's just gonna let Lisa do what Lisa wants to do. We move on to the final scene of the night, and it is at Meredith and Seth's house. They're having Shabbat dinner. And growing up in New York, I am very familiar with the Jewish culture. All right, I know a thing or two about Shabbat dinners, and I've been to quite a few bar and bat mitzvahs. All right, I went to a tennis camp, and everybody there was Orthodox Jewish, and I made a lot of friends there, so I know my way around. If I have any Jewish subscribers, holla at me down in the comments. And I was cracking up at how it took Brooks forever and a day to finish braiding the challah bread and put it in the oven. I said, Brooks, sometime today? Like, he was playing with it, and then he just had it out, and then he was just walking around with the bread. It was like, put it in the oven. Lisa and her family arrive, and she reminds us that she's Jewish by heritage, but Mormon by choice. Meredith and Lisa greet each other. Meredith says in her confessional that although she's hurt at Lisa and Jen's friendship, she does need her friend right now, and she's happy to see her. And Meredith and Lisa really do look like they could be twins. Because in this scene, I couldn't stop staring like, wait, okay, that one is Meredith, that one's Lisa, okay. They just look so much alike, and it's really crazy how there's no blood relation at all. Lisa and Meredith go off to the couch, and they start discussing this whole mess between Meredith and Jen. Lisa starts it off by saying that Meredith needs to give Jen a chance to apologize and make it right. Meredith is getting irate because she feels like Jen has been out of line talking about her son. And Meredith says she needs to apologize to my family in order to make it right. Meredith then goes on to say how if Jen ever points her finger in her face, curses at her, or raises her voice at her ever again, she will never speak to Jen Shah ever. Meredith is getting really riled up as she's saying it. So Lisa keeps saying, Meredith, calm down, just relax. Lisa responds back with, I know my friendship to Jen hurts you, but I try to keep it separate. I said, girl, really? Like, you're really high-key friends with the enemy. I just don't understand how you can be so close to Meredith and Meredith's family, and you think it's acceptable to be friends with a woman who talked badly about your best friend's son. Make it make sense, Lisa. I just feel like Lisa is in the wrong. I didn't like how dismissive she was of Meredith in this scene. Meredith is well within her right to side-eye Lisa and feel some sort of way about this because what Lisa's doing isn't right. And when Meredith said in her confessional that every time she shows Lisa the screenshots of what Jen's saying about Brooks, Lisa turns a blind eye. If the shoe was on the other foot, Lisa, you know good and damn well you'd be pissed and hurt if Meredith befriended one of your enemies. And then when Lisa tried to compare Meredith being friends with Whitney and Heather, like, sis, you can't compare that. And to be honest, Lisa, you were rude to them, and they clapped back at you at the reunion. And I want to know when this whole shift happened, because if I remember correctly, when they were in Vegas, Lisa, along with everybody else, wasn't on Jen's side. They were all pissed at Jen. So when did this happen where Lisa wanted to get in good with Jen? I'm just not understanding when this all went down. And I would have low-key kicked Lisa out of my house, playing in my face like that, acting like she can't understand where I'm coming from. The scene ends with them blessing the food and Meredith saying in her confessional that for some reason, Lisa just doesn't want to hear it in regards to Jen harassing Brooks. It seems like Meredith and Lisa's friendship is about to be tested. I feel like they're going to have a really big falling out in the middle of this season, and season 3, it'll all be about rebuilding their friendship. But I think it's a mess. I'm on Meredith's side. Lisa, you are dead wrong. But y'all, this was a fantastic premiere episode, and I am excited for what they have in store for the rest of the season. So as always, thank you all for watching, and make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all later. Bye.